She chopped her female rivals into small pieces, murdered the ruler, and killed her own immediate family members. That was just what she had to do to keep power. Wu Zetian was born in 624 AD to a wealthy family. This enabled her to get a solid education. She learned music, read about politics, government affairs, and studied all of China's classic works in circulation at the time. She was incredibly well educated, an unusual trait for a woman at the time. At the age of 14, this beautiful accomplished girl became a concubine to Emperor Taizong. She was given the title Siren, a fifth-grade concubine of the Tang Dynasty. Her perspicacity set her apart from others in the palace, and her knowledge of literature, history, and talent quickly found favor with the emperor. He bestowed Wu Zetian the title Mainyang, which means charming lady, and she was assigned to work in the imperial study. Here she was introduced to official documents and quickly became acquainted with affairs of state. In addition to having Taizong's favor, she caught the eye of his son, Prince Li Ji. The two began an affair, which was risky since he was married and she was still bound to his father. As a concubine during the Tang Dynasty, tradition dictated that only those women who gave the emperor a child would be allowed to remain in the palace on his death. Therefore, in 649, when Emperor Taizong died, the childless Wu was sent to a Buddhist convent. However, Taizong's son, Prince Li Ji, now Emperor Gaozong, was in love with Wu. He sent for her and had her brought back to the palace. Wu became one of the many women in Gaozong's life, including his other concubines and his wife Lady Wang. The emperor's wife, Empress Wang, had no children with her husband. His top concubine, Xiao Shufei, called the pure concubine, gave birth to a son and two daughters, and Wu Zetian produced two sons in 652 and 653. None of this really mattered from the perspective of who would succeed Gaozong, since he had already chosen a successor, but it did cause a lot of tension among the women. Gaozong designated that his chancellor Liu Shi's son, Li Zhong, would rule after him, in large part because Liu Shi was his wife's uncle. What really bothered Lady Wang and Xiao was the attention paid to Wu. She was educated and different from other women, so she was automatically seen as a threat. In 654, Wu gave birth to a daughter who sadly died shortly after birth from strangulation. Wu accused Lady Wang, the last person to have held the baby, of smothering the child. She knew Lady Wang disliked her, and according to some later writers, she killed the baby herself to set Lady Wang up for the crime. Lady Wang had no alibi, and she was also accused of witchcraft by Wu. Wu, looking to get rid of all of her rivals, indicated that the pure concubine may have been involved as well. Lady Wang was found guilty of the murder and banished to a remote part of the palace. Later, the pure concubine joined her. Gaozong divorced Lady Wang and then married Wu. With her female rivals out of the picture, Wu was empress as of 655. She faced opposition by advisors who had served under Taizong and refused to accept her position with Gaozong. With Wu's increasing influence on Gaozong, they had cause for concern. The advisors argued that Wu was not from a high-ranking family and she had been concubine to Taizong, and her thus marriage to Gaozong was incestuous. Wu set out to get rid of these men, finding ways to exile them or execute them. After Gaozong had a debilitating stroke in 660, Wu wielded even more power. She took over matters of government, court, and state, effectively ruled China for the next 23 years. Once she became empress, Wu ordered that Lady Wang and the pure concubine to be killed. She is said to have ordered that their hand and feet be cut off before being thrown into a vat of wine to drown. According to one source, she looked on and commented, "Now these two witches can get drunk to their bones." Wu's two sons died while their father was still alive. One crown prince was allegedly poisoned for challenging his mother, while another was exiled and forced to commit suicide. Wu's son, Li Hong, became emperor after his father's death in 683. He took the royal name Zhongzong, but he and his wife, Lady Wei, pushed too much of their own agenda forward. Wu saw they were taking too much authority for themselves, especially after Lady Wei had her father appointed as her husband's chief minister. Wu charged them both with treason and had them banished. According to other sources, she poisoned her son to get rid of him. Her youngest son, who took the royal name Ruizong, ruled under house arrest while his mother made all the decisions. She forced him to abdicate in 690. It was at this point that she declared herself emperor. She ruled for the next 15 years. One of the ways Wu was able to successfully weed out her enemies and rivals was through her network of secret police and spies. Wu used informants to find out information from all over China, paying individuals to come to court to report on what they knew. She gathered dirt on government officials she wanted to get rid of, rewarded officials who informed on one another, and unearthed plots against her before they became real threats. Late in her reign, Wu became corrupted by excess. She took on male concubines, showing great favor to the Zhong brothers, and neglected her duties. The Zhong brothers, 20-year-old, flamboyant, party animals, were highly begrudged by government officials and others at court. The empress ignored this and became increasingly dependent upon her two lovers as she aged. In addition to her time with concubines, Wu began to think that everyone was conspiring against her. She continued to exile, jail, and execute her rivals. She eventually became addicted to aphrodisiacs and increasingly lost touch with reality. As Wu grew older, so her hold on state affairs began to lessen. She also realized that as a woman, she could only be respected after her death as a member of the Li family. She therefore allowed herself to be persuaded in 698 to reinstate Li Xian as crown prince. In the year 705 there was a palace coup and Wu was forced to resign. Her son Emperor Zhongzong thus restored the Tang dynasty to power. At the age of 82, Wu Zetian died in December 705. She was buried alongside Emperor Gaozong in the Qianling tomb. So lived and died the only woman who ever ruled the Chinese Empire in her own right. Opinions are sharply divided between those who admire her for her many achievements and those who regard her as a ruthless, merciless schemer and autocrat. During the Tang dynasty, China expanded its military control of the region, largely under the guidance of Wu herself. Her reign was peaceful and she advanced the system of civil service exams in Chinese society. Even her most ardent critics have to admit that military expenses were reduced, taxes cut, salaries of deserving officials raised, retirees given a viable pension, and vast royal lands near the capital turned over to husbandry. Though Wu was a competent feudal monarch in terms of achievement she made, she was extremely ruthless, murdering her relatives who tried to take advantage of her position. Those who opposed her in any way were quickly removed from office, exiled or forced to commit suicide, including those founding fathers of the dynasty and many others. Members of the Li royal family and their relatives were likewise eliminated. In addition, Wu favored Buddhism and ordered the construction of many Buddhist temples and sculptures nationwide, which added great pressure to the common people. What are your personal thoughts on Wu Zetian? What do you think of her as a ruler? What do you think of her as a person?